Coming to you live with the insight you need from the financials and political capitals of the world to the heart of innovation. This is Opportunities to Consider with your host, author, speaker, and corporate strategist, Hunter Gaylor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Markets Hunter. I am your host, Hunter Gaylor, coming to you live actually today from the heart of innovation and capital markets. We're here in New York City, and I have the pleasure of being joined by my guest today, who is a very accomplished engineer and inventor. He is the CEO of DAIS Corp, and we're going to bring him in now. Tim, thank you so much for joining us here on the Markets Hunter show. For all of our guests, I know we had a conversation earlier where we were talking about a lot of the different innovations that your company is doing. And I just want to, before we dive into it, let people know where they can find some information out about your company. Your symbol as a publicly traded company is DLYT, and they're on the OTC board, and it's DAIS Corp. You can go to DAIS Analytics or analytic.com. That's ANALYTIC.com. Tim, thank you so much for joining me again today on Markets Hunter CEO Talk.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
So, Tim, last time we were talking about innovations occurring in industry, and one of them is the concept that we have not had any major technological changes in the air conditioning business since Carrier. And what really struck me as interesting is you used a terminology where you start with the architecture of the business and you know how you're able to create these innovations. So I want to start from the beginning. Okay, take me back to the origins of DAIS and really kind of dive into where you started and where you're at now from an innovation perspective, because it's really incredible to me that we've not seen any innovation at all in the air conditioning space, at least for the past 50, 60 years. And now DAIS comes along and you have created a new, essentially, I'll use your words, it's like the semiconductor business. It's incredible. So take us back a little bit so we can understand the history and the innovation.
Sure. The easiest way is really to go back at the beginning. The entire idea for the company was to take a new material set, and that material set would be used with a proton exchange membrane fuel cell. Don't fall asleep now. The interesting thing
it's very interesting.
That produces energy with essentially air and water. So the issue that you want to attack is making something that is today not achievable because there's a value in it. The cost, the price is good, the return to the individual is good. So you hear so many people talking about, I'm going to save the world, billion-dollar business. God bless them all. I think that's great. Right. I look at it a little bit differently. DAIS looks at this from the standpoint that this is a business first and foremost. It has to be a product that makes sense economically. From the feature set, it has to be better than what it is today. And long term, it's good for you. So that's kind of the way we're approaching it. And so we started with the business focusing on the membrane for fuel cells. A very interesting gentleman who was part of our board for a long time, unfortunately passed away. He was the former CTO of General Electric for many years. He always said, fuel cells are right around the corner. I've been saying that for 40 years was his comment. So anyway, fuel cells didn't really pan out. So we looked at what else can we do with this material that we developed. And we started looking and we found air conditioning. And it grew from there. Back in the 2003, 2004 timeframe, nobody was using a membrane in air conditioning. People laughed at us. The first time we went to one of the big companies, the technical group, God is my witness, we were just about laughed out of the building. But
well, it's incredible.
A decade later, it works.
I mean, it's incredible to me because based on my research, this does away with 75% of the electricity costs. It's purifying. And after everything that we just experienced with COVID and a global pandemic, and by the way, as a person that resides in Florida, air conditioning is very important to us. Okay, and so this type of innovation you have, I mean, you're taking on a $600 billion market here, and this technology and membrane you have seems to me to be the killer application.
I believe there's a lot of legs to that statement. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that was the case. The architecture being changed out entirely, but the interesting thing is, be from the end user perspective, they aren't going to see that. They're still going to see some boxes. They're going to be smaller. There are going to be less things inside of them, and you're going to hear a hum versus a loud noise. But the architecture, the basic underpinning of it is entirely different. You have refrigerants, you have all sorts of things with the existing technology. We have a little bit of water, this membrane, and a little bit of vacuum, and that's the way it works. That's where it becomes so economic in terms of the cost justification, and that's where you save the environment in terms of CO2.
So this seems to me, well, that's a very good point, because we are seeing the refrigeration market accounts for 6% of all energy consumption worldwide, and that's a big number when you think about it. It seems to me that this is a perfect licensing. Is this your business model where you're licensing this to these manufacturers, these large manufacturers of air conditioning systems and refrigeration systems?
I'll answer that by saying with a qualified yes, and I put myself at great risk here. We look at it, we call it the Apple model. We design it, we make it work, then we work with outside firms to produce it. As the outside firm, a large multinational like we're working with right now to bring things to the next level, is it a license arrangement? The answer to that is yes. It could be either one. But the overall business model is we develop it, we work with people to make it work, and we get a royalty stream from that. They buy material from us, and that's it.
Well, no, I think for at least our viewers, the Apple model is a good model. I mean, after all, they did reach $1 trillion market cap, and this is an even. I think refrigeration is a little bit more important than iPhones, in my opinion. It accounts for
I
how
tend
we
to
keep
agree with you, but they seem to be able to get more money.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I'd like to dive a little bit into what you had said with this. Obviously, you described this large international industrial company that you're working with. Are there more than one?
Direct answer, no. Are we working on more than one? Yes.
Okay. I think that's good for people following your company to see the potential ability to get a lot of market share. So I think that's important. In Europe, we're reading that there's a lot of stuff going on with the banning of PFAS and some of these regulations that are going in with green energy and green hydrogen and green. Talk to me a little bit about how your company is involved and how you're set different to be able to participate in at least helping Europe solve some of their problems.
PFAS is an incredibly interesting topic on many levels. First, it's something from a water perspective that has come in sideways, and you see the regulatory bodies around the world reacting to it quicker than I've ever seen them do. Number one. Number two, what it means for us is you have these chemicals that are used, they're called forever chemicals, and they've been used in products for longer than you and I have been alive. Let's put it that way. Uh, okay, fine. Now we're finding out that the residual part of that, not a good thing. It gets into the water, it gets into the soil. It can kill you. It can do a lot of things. I'll just leave it at that without going into the gory details of it. But the point is that we can clean that water 100%. There's no trace, and you're talking parts per trillion. There's no trace of the material left, the PFAS material, once we finish with it. So that's a good thing. Now look at it the other way though, but there are products today that are made using these chemicals, and people want to get away from them. For instance, 3M said back earlier this year, we're out of the forever chemical business in the next 3 years. Fine, but they have a lot of products that they, a lot of the what I'll call paying the bills type of revenue for them that they don't want to give up. They're going to want to find an alternative way to do it. I can't say we can replace every one of them, but there are a large number of the products that are made today that we can use this platform of plastics to replace the products they're making today, the underpinning of it with the underpinning made around our plastics. So there's a product opportunity here and there's a cleanup opportunity.
So with regards to PFAS in general, with clean water, and I'll use the 3M example, what is the alternative to PFAS? Is it the technology that DAIS has?
Clearly, yes. And I'll be candid enough to say I'm sure there are others, but we have something that I know an awful lot about that works. It's available today. It's a function of, okay, how do you replace A with A plus? That's what we have to go through next. And that's what we're working on. We're talking to a number of companies right now to do just that thing. For instance, just a simple example, every single gas tank, internal combustion engine driven car today, there's a little float switch, and that's covered with a PFAS material. Not only does it create PFAS when they're making it, but it has a residual in it. So when you take the car and it ends up in a junkyard or wherever it is, it still it will continue to produce PFAS because it'll contaminate any water that gets near it. So you want to get rid of that.
Let me ask this question, and this isn't in my notes here, but you just triggered something that wants me to ask this question. With regards to refrigeration or air conditioning in cars, when those air conditioning in cars are running, that accounts for a lot of the energy consumption in automobiles, and we know that from an
Yeah.
industry perspective. With what DAIS is doing, can you talk about the potential use cases in automobiles, or at least for the automobile market?
Well, there are two things. Uh, I, if you look at the product that we have out today, it's called Conserve. It's an energy recovery ventilator. 99 out of 100 people won't even know what that is because it's kind of been behind the scenes for a couple of years, many years, and ventilation's never been that well understood until the pandemic. That's changed. That's one of the reasons why things are really great from a marketplace perspective for us. But you use that same type of technology, preconditioning the air coming into the car, so the car doesn't use as much energy. We've had studies done where you get in an electric car about 21 miles more in a charge, which is an
Wow.
electric car owner. That's great. It's fantastic. Uh, and in an internal combustion engine, the mileage comes down to, I want to say it's like 30, 37 miles more immaterial. The point is that you can save energy, extend your range by putting that energy recovery ventilator into the car's ventilation system. The other obvious place is in the air conditioning system itself. Can you use what we're doing with nano air? Sure, absolutely. It's just a function of sitting down, engineering it, and putting it in to make it work. But the fundamental architecture of it, the process of it, the working of the material that really drive it, that works. We know that.
To me, it's interesting, Tim, and I'd like to go into a little bit about talking about the green marketplace, if you will. There's been a lot of talk, both politically and in the marketplace, of investments into, we'll say, green energy type companies, trying to solve the supposed climate change crisis, things like that. There's a lot of research, but you actually have developed technologies that help reduce this. This is not just talk. This is actual, real researched, real life applications that are being done that DAIS is active today implementing, correct?
Yes.
So when we look at the European marketplace, for example, they recently came out where they are banning. Can you talk a little bit about the P bans or the PFAS bans that are going on and what that means for DAIS? How are they going to replace these things? Is it similar to what 3M's doing? Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yes, the commonality between 3M and what the European Union is doing really, it's okay, it's PFAS. 3M from a business perspective is saying, enough, I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm sure there are dozens of reasons that I won't be able to understand, but some of it has to be that they don't want to get involved in a problem downstream, like, oh gosh, what was Roundup? That kind of situation. Nobody wants that. Number two, there's a better way to do it, and they're really good at figuring that out. The EU saying the same thing. PFAS is an issue, so you have refrigerants today that are PFAS using when they're created. They're banning all sorts of things, and they're building in certain exceptions. But the point is that the refrigerants have been noted as a problem. So again, we don't use refrigerant. We use a little bit of water, a little bit of vacuum, and the material. Big difference.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the nano technology and how it works from and this is just a little bit of the research I've done, it actually creates energy because you're able to go back and forth between the molecules.
No, not really. Um, the beauty of it is that it is able to recognize what a molecule of moisture looks like. It's very selective in how it transfers that moisture, and it blocks out almost everything else. So you have a solid piece of plastic, but you can move moisture molecules bidirectionally. You say, wait a minute, how do you do that? It's real simple, actually. If you think of anything plastic you're looking at in the room in front of you, look at your cell phone, look at, I don't know, a case for
Sure.
something, a bottle of water. Uh, Most of the time, I'm going to keep this real simple. Most of the time, there's one channel in that particular type of plastic, and it hates moisture. It's solid, and things don't go through it. Period. That's why it's great for a water bottle. This has two channels, and the second channel allows you to do all the fancy things that we talk about. That's the innovation. That's the thing that makes it all work. So you take that with a couple of other pieces, and you use the features of those plastics, those materials, to replace existing pumps, motors, all sorts of things that are energy consumers. That's where you pick up the environmental impact, the savings there, and the energy savings, plus a lot of other benefits. For instance, if you look at Conserve, the product we sell today, if a pandemic like molecule touches that surface, within less than 5 minutes, it kills
Wow,
it.
that's incredible.
So you've got a safety issue there. There's so many little, the more fresh air you can bring into a space, and this was proven to the world during the pandemic period, but it's been known by HVAC people for years. The more fresh air you bring into a room, the better off you're going to be for a lot of reasons. Your productivity is higher, you're healthier, triggers for asthma and allergies drop. And in this case, if you have air moving around, the ability for moisture to be involved in moving a molecule of COVID, for instance, goes away. So it's a huge, huge impact in so many little subtle ways. That's where, in my opinion, there's so many pieces to this, it becomes like a semiconductor. There's so many uses, it's incredible.
Well, I think that speaks to the market potential of DAIS, and that speaks to the potential, what that means for the potential market cap of your company to, increase. We don't really get into the forward-looking statements on the show, but we do look at the basic fundamentals. If the science is there, which it clearly is, the applications are there, it clearly is. You have a clearly defined market space, specifically just with air conditioning alone. And then you mentioned what 3M's doing, and of course, in parallel, what the European Union is doing. It seems to me that DAIS is very well positioned to capture a large percent of this market share, which would mean obviously increased revenues and increased growth. So that's what we look at it
Yeah,
from a market.
I'll interrupt you just a moment. There's one other piece to this. The US, the EPA specifically, they're looking at tightening the energy saving required, the energy use numbers on appliances, because that's a huge drag on obviously energy. And if you look at the ability to influence that in terms of energy, for instance, higher, they bought GE's appliance business back 2015, I think. They're making a certain number of refrigerators in China today. Every one of them has about a half a square foot of the material in it in a crisper drawer. You say, what the hell is that for? You're creating a micro environment inside of that crisper drawer that we've proven, demonstrated, along with our friends at Hire, to
Mhm.
have an economic value, and you extend the usable life of fresh food. So a third of the food that's thrown away every year that's worth trillions of dollars drops. Your in particular, your individual use, you pay for even their most expensive refrigerator within 2 years. That's a very simple use of it, but it's you see again the features do all the heavy lifting. So
Well,
you have things like that, a clothes dryer. So there's an impact that we have in the appliance space. So you look at the appliances, you look at PFAS with water, cleaning the water, PFAS in terms of replacing the products that are made. You start to see this horizon of all the things that you can do. And again, I'm not some kind of crazed CEO that sits here and talks about all this technology, blah blah blah. It's here. You want
no, I
to
mean
you
it's
want to
it's
see
it's
it,
got
you're going to
it's
see
got
it.
clear, yeah, clear industry uses, Tim, is what I see, and that's what I mean. When we look at it, just from a conversational perspective, you walk into any big box retailer, and you see all of the refrigeration or the appliances, the big yellow stickers on those appliances say what the, expected amount it's going to cost you in energy consumption.
Well, yeah, I want
And
to talk about
so,
that. Hold you right there, that point. Last
yeah.
year, we did a study with a local college, university in the Tampa Bay area, and we interviewed 1,700 people with 28 questions. And one of those questions was believability. And we talked about the sticker. People don't believe it. Prove it to me. How are you
Mhm.
going to tell me that? How do I know I'm really saving that kind of money? In this case, with what we're doing in terms of the fresh, you could see it with your eyes. You could, you could feel it.
Right.
Big difference. So yes,
Well, and also you can clearly taste it
well,
because the food is fresher, right?
that's
I
the
mean,
other
there's
side of
another,
it.
right. So, but I think that that's important because that relates to the everyday investor, right? Because everyone, refrigeration, air conditioning, these are things that affect every single person on a daily, on a daily aspect. And so I think that's important.
Well, let
I
me bring
want
it
to
right
go,
down to one simple thing. Who
go
likes
ahead.
ice cream? Just about everybody on the face of the earth likes ice cream, right?
Sure.
You open it, you open up an ice cream container, and you see little crystals inside of it. You go, oh, I don't like that. You get rid of it. Ah, you use this material, and that doesn't happen. It
So,
extends the life. Your ice cream lasts longer.
but even outside of that side of that, I mean, this is markets hunters the show, and so we look at different markets, especially on a global aspect. It seems to me outside of just the individual retailing aspect of it with the consumer, you also have opportunities for large applications, for example, cold storage facilities or grocery stores or these the likes of the nature of these types of businesses that can clearly see an effect of the use of your applications. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Look at the, well, you mentioned the food issue. Look at some of the large restaurant supply organizations. They could impact their customers incredibly with this type of technology in the saving type of materials or products that they use today. They would improve them immensely. They'd be less expensive and do more for them. So that's just one example. Uh, the number of industries that you cover, it's a cross industry type of use. Once you understand the basic functionality, it's only limited by your imagination, my imagination, and everybody else that understands it. Imagination. It works.
Yeah, I mean for me, when I look at green hydrogen and I listen to what you're saying, the industry use case applications are tremendous. I mean, even if we just look at the air conditioning space with these companies like a Carrier or larger companies that manufacture this or these types of that market alone is huge. This is before we even get into refrigerated trucking, before we get into any of these other industry verticals. So there's obviously clear growth here. I'd like to go back for a moment, Tim, and have you kind of dive into a little bit about um, the what the European Union is saying with regards to the elimination of PFAS. How are they going about the regulation of this? And what are you doing as DAIS to address the situation specifically with the European Union?
The European Union is outlawing within 7 years certain things that all contribute to this issue of PFAS. And if you take that, PFAS is a fancy name. The chemically would put most people to sleep. Essentially, it's a forever chemical. That means that when you wherever it goes, it pretty much stays there, and over time it will accumulate. So in the human body, you can build certain levels up of this material. It is a fast-moving type of contaminant from the industry perspective. I've been doing this for working with water for over 10 years, and I've never seen anything move so quickly through the EPAs and their cousins around the world as this PFAS material issue is because it's so pervasive.
And
So
when you
the
and from a business perspective, when there is an elimination of PFAS, does that mean there has to now be a replacement?
when it comes to water processing, no, because hopefully at some point you get rid of the people, the processes that create the issue in the first place. So the second part of this, in terms of what we're looking at, is there are products. For instance, you talk about green energy, you talk about hydrogen, green hydrogen. Most of the people that are creating green hydrogen today use a type of plastic membrane in their equipment that is on the hit list because it's a PFAS material. And that's a big, big issue. So the point is not only can we clean up where it's found to be a mess, we can also, in some cases, replace the product that's made that still continues to be a PFAS producing thing. So that's a big fundamental difference in many areas. Sometimes you just clean something up and that's it. Okay, people drink the water. But in this particular instance, you actually have the ability to influence what's happening with the product itself because of the way the material works.
Well, no, Tim, I think that's a great explanation. And, as we're kind of wrapping the show here, I just wanted to, once again, thank you for coming on to the show. I think our audience really appreciates this. To me, for people that are watching or tuning in, this is the first major technology change in the air conditioning industry since Carrier. And I think that's a huge, important note for the marketplace to understand. And I encourage everyone.
Excuse me, I want to interrupt just a second because there are many people in the HVAC industry that may want to throw tomatoes at you when saying that, because people have done an incredible job with, oh gosh, any number of components within the air conditioning equipment since it was first shown by Mr. Carrier. But the fundamental thing that we address is the flaw is in the architecture of that. And it's worked well for us for years, and it's great. We've done a lot of hard work, but to take it where it needs to be, the market has changed. The market's saying, I want it to be less expensive. I want to get rid of all the issues associated with the environment and other things, but those two are big ones. And that's where you talk about innovation and green. I think green is an overused term. It's really, to me, it's more about what I'll call sustainability performance and the value of that. There should be a rating, in my opinion, almost like the EPA thing with the yellow sticker. You should have a sustainability performance value of 1 through 10 on everything, so you understand what it is and what it really means, what the total cost of using that product is. But back to the HVAC thing specifically, I would say that what's been done is marvelous. What we're doing is we're knocking that all down and we're recreating it because it's better and it's addressing what the market needs now. The market's changed.
No, I agree with you, and I don't mind the occasional tomato being thrown, but at least we have this. At least we have the science and the company DAIS to back it up, and so I think that's important, especially with sustainability. And a lot of people that are watching this are concerned about sustainability. I think the investors out there that are interested are looking at the market opportunity. And when you start talking about the elimination of over almost 75% of electricity costs, this is a quote game changer. And I know I overuse the term game changer at times, but this really is.
It is. So I want to talk about the 75% number that came from our multinational affiliate. That's their number. Our number, just to kind of keep things straight, and if you go and look at documentation produced by DAIS, we're looking at things in more in the 54, 52% range. But that's their specific number based on their exact application.
No, I think that's an important note, especially, and I think that's a good way to kind of close out because, the fact that you are working with very large international industrial companies, that's obviously going to mean some good revenue growth year over year for this year and the next year. So I think that's important for the viewers to understand that. So Tim, thank you so much for joining. Thank you everyone for tuning into another episode of Markets Hunter CEO Talk, where we ask the questions and dive deep into the companies and their innovations and their developments. And so today it was DAIS Corporation. You can check out their stock, DLYT. Again, that stock symbol is down at the bottom of the screen. And we were joined by Tim, who is the CEO of the company. We'll have him back for more as we follow the journey of the company. And once again, we just thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe, follow on Twitter. We are rapidly growing there, along with our YouTube channel, and follow us on LinkedIn, where you can get more information and follow our news coverage and our in-depth interviews with the CEOs and executives that move industries forward and create the change that we need to lead us to a better world and a cleaner world at that one with DAIS. So thank you, Tim, for joining us, and we look forward to having you back again.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And great. Look forward to coming back.
All right. Thank you. Once again, everyone, this is Markets Hunter for another CEO Talk, signing off. Take care, everyone.